Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Preparedness Testimonies. And I forgot what part it was already, but you would have seen it in the title, and maybe I'll put it again here. So what that means is I have a whole playlist on these testimonials that other people have shared with me. And so I'll be linking to that full playlist in the description box down below. And also, if you'd like to share your own preparedness testimonial story, which typically is going to be either about how you got to where you are on a budget, or how preparedness has helped you, or even sharing a few little interesting tips that might be a little more unique to you to give people some other ideas. So if you would like to do that, though you are definitely welcome to share those in comments, but if you would like them to be read in a future video like this, please type this up and put it in an email, sending it to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com with the title Preparedness Testimonies. And let's get to the first story of today. Our preparedness journey began when the Big C came out and closed all of our craft shows, which we had been doing for about 2 years. We really didn't realize how big of an impact it would have on stores until I did my weekly shopping and couldn't find toilet paper in 5 stores, along with very empty shelves. We came home and Mike built me 3 raised beds, and I bought plants to fill them. I started shopping in Dollar Tree for rice, beans, spices, pasta, and whatever I could put away. $40 to $50 went a long way towards getting started. But even $5 to $10 a week can get someone started. Absolutely. Even $1 extra, because you can buy a can of something to put on your shelves. Mike built me more raised beds, many of them from pallets we got free. We just had to pick them up. I also save seeds now instead of buying plants. I only bought what was on sale. We didn't eat out and used the savings to eventually buy a beef cow. That's great. And boy, I tell you, just cutting out, eating out at all, or even if you're one that tends to eat out several days a week, drop down to 1. Preferably drop down to none and learn how to cook and bake from scratch and just make your own meals at home. You will save so much money. And I was actually surprised when I looked it up years ago and found that the average American goes out to eat like 5 or more days a week. I couldn't believe that. We would maybe go out to eat once a month, and I don't know when the last time was we ever went out to eat, because we just don't. It's just not important to me. I don't care. But at any rate, let me finish her story here. Friends who had large gardens shared produce with us, and along with what I grew, canned, or dehydrated, everything I could get my hands on. A few years ago, my dad, who is now 89, wanted to go to Illinois to see his family. I drove him, and we spent just over 2 weeks. It was a trip I will always cherish. That's great. That's beautiful. That's kind of like Patrick and his dad, that story. You know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I'll link to that video down below. Mike, in the meantime, would browse the pantry for meals. Most of the time, he just ate it out of the jar. I found Rain Country about the time our shows were canceled and took mental notes. Then started implementing herbs, vinegars, wine, and so many other things. You felt like an old friend from the first video I watched. I love this. Thank you for that. My grandson's family moved in with us for a year to save money for a place to live. They were a 1-income family with an infant. I was able to feed us all, mostly from the pantry and the freezer. They have been on their own about 8 months now, but he still raids my pantry once in a while. We are still tweaking, putting in solar a few panels at a time, but over the last 5 years, we've come a long way. God is good all the time. Shalom. Thank you for that story, Deb. Really appreciate that. Now, this one's going to have a couple photos that I got to remember to add to this. People don't usually send me photos, but it is nice if people have photos they'd like to share that I can add to these stories instead of just using my own or ones I gather from the internet. How I've saved food and prepped it for eating later is a small garden. A bit of a backstory. I'm a disabled senior renting a small apartment. It does have a small patio. They have allowed me to have a garden. It has helped me keep sane and feeling blessed. I can do this for myself. I started out last year with a few planters and some I found on sale at the end of the season. I also have a $200 budget where I save some each month. This year I saved enough for a small dehydrator. Very good. For the first time, I made a potato bed out of a grow bag and placed in a children's swimming pool. Yes, I drilled holes in it for drainage. I live in northern Nevada where the growing season is very short. Either it's very cold or super dry and hot. As I explained to those who want to know about it, it can be done if you're willing to try. I wanted to express gardening helps feed my body, but also my soul. Absolutely. I can totally agree with that. Thank you for having your channel. I watch it often and it has helped me. Also, as an end note, keep the scriptures coming. I enjoy them. Thank you for that. Okay, if I remember correctly, this one I'm getting ready to share is from Tyler Woods. Preparedness isn't about stacking up stuff. Preparedness is a mindset that understands the volatile nature of life and does something to mitigate the challenges. So began my journey into preparedness as a young boy. And by the way, Tyler does have at least 1-2 books out that I will link to down below on preparedness. My family history is composed of pioneers, farmers, and self-reliant lifestyles that survive and thrive while others fail and wail. My maternal grandparents were North Dakota farmers that survived the Great Depression without debt or mortgage. Grandpa farmed with horses and Grandma cared for the kitchen garden. That was only a 1/4 acre. My mom recalled those years without much more than it was how everyone lived. Use it up, mend it, make something else out of it when you can't mend it. My dad's side of the family grew, hunted, and fished for what they needed, and likewise didn't remember much hardship during the Depression. Growing up through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, my mom took in sewing. We picked and canned fruit from trees in our friend's yard, and Grandma baked pastries, made preserves, and came to live with us after Grandpa died. The Pacific Northwest was hit with the tail end of a hurricane when I was in grade school. We lost electric power for about a week, but it was no inconvenience. We were camping in the living room. My dad cooked dinner in the fireplace. It made lasting memories for all of us. I learned early not to depend too much on any one thing. All electric homes, only one source of heat, an electric clothes dryer without a clothesline were foreign to me and just not right. Years later, I married and built our new home. With intent, I designed our home with oil-fired baseboard, hot water heat, and a hot water maker that ran from a heat zone off of the boiler. We had a generator for backup, and when a storm took out our power for 10 days, we had heat, hot water, and enough power to run the microwave and lights. We didn't rough it, we smoothed it. Nice wording there. Prepping is a new term for how our parents and grandparents lived all along. Yep. It's easy to get started. Look at what you depend on and ask yourself how you would get along without it. One thing at a time, learn alternative ways of getting things done. Don't be fooled that you have to do things my way, right. There are dozens of ways to do things right. Find the way that suits you and your situation. That is something that I'm always saying, because we have a tendency, we follow someone and it's like, oh, I got to do it the way they do it. But it's just like off-grid laundry, for example. There are so many different ways you can go about it. And I even did a video where I covered various different ideas that you can have as a backup if you lose power and you need to do your laundry by hand. There are many different ways you can go about it. And I have my own off-grid laundry setup, and I have had to fall back on it for about 6 weeks. I had to use it. And because our electric washing machine, even though we can run it most of the time off of solar power, if the machine doesn't work, you can't run it off of any power. So we had to get a new machine, and it was during 2020 that this happened, and it took 6 weeks for us to get our new washing machine in. So thankfully, I already had my off-grid setup put in place. Patrick had built for me. We pulled together. I had practiced on it quite a bit, so that I already felt comfortable with using it. That's the other thing too, is remembering to practice with the things you have, so when it comes down to having to depend on it, you know how to use it. The way I do it's going to be different than the way somebody else does it, and you just gotta be able to do. I mean, you can just get a couple of plastic buckets and you can do laundry with that. So go check out that video. We'll be linking down below. Well, I have the one that's about our setup, and then I have the one where I compiled a whole bunch of different ideas. Some are extremely cheap to put together. So the last one is actually just a short little tip that somebody shared with me. So I live in an area that is subject to wildland forest fires, and to prepare, I keep enough plastic animal crates on my front porch for quick evacuation of my 3 cats, 3 dogs, and as many hens as I can catch and carry in my car. They have served me well so far this summer season. So that was a nice little tip to throw in there. So those are good too. It doesn't have to be a long story. And, we all have something that we can share and get better ideas. And just like Tyler was saying in his that I already covered, through these different little tips and suggestions, and it's all going to vary depending on where you live, your situation, if you live in an apartment or a house or on a homestead on 40 acres, it's all going to vary. So it's about, finding those little tips that are going to fit into what works for you and what's going to be most necessary to you. It's just like putting up food. If you hate rice and you hate beans, that shouldn't be the first thing you put up. You should put up food that you know you're going to eat. And but everybody will spout rice and beans, including myself, because they're cheap and you can put a whole bunch of them up in a dry form and they can last for many years that way. But that's why that one is a common thing that people say. But if you or your family don't eat either, there's no point in putting those things up. You got to start with the things that you know you are going to eat and that your family's going to eat. There's no one right way to go about it. You just got to go about it. You got to start somewhere. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the testimonies. Remember, if you'd like to share your own, rancountryhomestead@gmail.com, preparedness testimonies, and I'll get that added to one of my future videos like this. And don't forget to check out the links in the description box down below by clicking on more or show more somewhere down here below the video screen. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.